The first college football playoff rankings of the 2024 season are officially out. We are here reacting to all the latest that just took place and just dropped. We now know the latest projected bracket, the top 25, everything in between. There's a lot to take away, a lot to react to. A number of SEC teams are included in that bracket. And, of course, the top 25. Really excited to break this down. I'm Chris Phillips. He's Dave Shumate. He is Cole Thompson. Guys, before we get rolling, make sure, as always, you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast where we get those. Also, of course, across all social media platforms as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. And make sure you check out our friends over at Prize Picks. They're sponsoring this video as well as the SEC Unfiltered Tour, one of our proud partners this football season and beyond. PrizePicks.com. Promo code SECU at sign up. And I do want to mention as well, with college basketball starting, they've got your prop totals on college basketball as well. So you can play any and all sports over at prizepicks.com, promo code SECU. They'll give you that $50 bonus when you play your first $5 or more lineup. And don't forget, you can pair up different sports. So if you want to put a couple college basketball guys in, college football, etc., you can do that with our friends at Prize Picks. Promo code SECU to get that $50 bonus. Again, I am Chris Phillips. He is Dave Shumate. He is Cole Thompson. Boys, the first college football playoff rankings and our first projected bracket have officially dropped. We're going to pull it up on screen here in a second, but lots to get into and really excited to break it down with you guys.
Yeah, fired up. I mean, I got Joey Galloway was trying to downplay it like it didn't matter. So we were talking a little bit off there. It's a little funny. But no, I mean, he's right. Like, it's going to work itself out. He's not wrong. Again, two things can be true at once. He's not really implicating how much it should be in this. But at the same time, downplaying a little bit. It can be in the middle. But, I mean, y'all tell me if I'm wrong. I wouldn't too shabby. 4 teams in the top 12 from the SEC. I mean, I thought those 4 teams were to be expected. I was telling Chris, Cole, for you got on. I saw somebody was like going wild.
A lot of pushback on Alabama.
Not Alabama being in. I was kind of like, I thought they would be in at 11, where they exactly were. I mean, they're the only team that hadn't played a team with a losing record. I was a little shocked. People were a little surprised about that. And then Missouri, I don't know who they're paying off to continue to get into these polls, but they are. They're in. And Missouri, it's not a shot at you. You could finish 10-2. I mean, if you could somehow get Brady Cook back, it's all could work out in front of you. I think Army should be a little higher. We'll talk about it here in a minute, but that's just some initial thoughts right there. Like, Tennessee's a big benefactor from an SEC team's perspective.
I feel like Cole's got a couple of victory laps to take for his rankings. You nailed a few of these, Cole. I know you drop these projected rankings every week.
South Carolina got snubbed. Vanderbilt got snubbed. Everyone got snubbed. I'm sorry, but here's what we can take. Here's what we can take away. Head-to-heads matter, because in every single matchup that we saw, the head-to-head winner was ranked ahead. So all you got to do, if you want to get in the playoff picture, you got to make sure that you're walking away with the dub. That's it. You do that, you got a shot. More importantly, they're respecting head-to-head matchups, and that is a very clear indication by every single ranking so far that we've seen. Also, I'm just going to throw this out now because I'm sorry that we have to bring this up. What are we doing with BYU? Like, I know that they are, yes, the 4 seed, and yes, they got in the top 10, but like, they got 2 top 25 ranked wins, not in the AP poll, in the college football playoff poll, and yet nobody else does. We don't have it when it comes to Miami. We don't have it when it comes to Texas. We don't have it when it comes to Penn State. Yet they're number 9. Can we just admit that you hate the Big 12? It's the fun conference. It's awesome. We enjoy it. Basically, the way that we snub BYU is the way we snub Vanderbilt and South Carolina. They equal together. You root for the Cougars if you are in South Carolina. You root for the Cougars if you are in Nashville, Tennessee. But you root against each other this weekend. That way you get to be in the top 25 next week.
Cole, you kind of sound like Greg McElroy. He was all over BYU,
it's
man.
BS.
He was fired up about them being underrated.
They should be high. They should be higher. They were at 9. I had
all right. With that being on that note, let's go ahead and pull up the rankings really quickly. Yeah. We're going to pull up the top 25 first.
Crap.
Then we'll pull up the playoff bracket to give you guys, those who are watching on YouTube and all across social media, a visual. So here we go. Courtesy of our friends over at ESPN, by the way, for this beautiful graphic. Appreciate y'all. This is the initial college football playoff top 25. Guys, let's start from 25 and go down. Army, Mizzou, Clemson, Louisville, Washington State, Colorado, 20 through 25. I agree with Dave. The first thing, what is Missouri doing? I know head-to-heads, but what are we doing with Mizzou, guys?
Head-to-head.
I guess they're giving a lot of credit for the Vanderbilt.
A lot of credit for the head-to-head.
Because if it's a head-to-head.
Fresh.
Okay, do me a favor, boys. What is Missouri? They're 6-2.
They're 6-2.
What is Vandy? They're 6-3.
6-3 with a win over Alabama.
What is South Carolina? They're South Carolina. They're 5-3.
5-3. Yeah.
So unfortunately, because of one is 6-2 and they have the head-to-head, they get in. I'm not saying it's right.
But they also said on the telecast they factor in, like, they made it very clear, I thought, how it looks. Like, they were asked about, and we're going to get there in a second, they were asked about teams getting to the conference championship game, and if they lose, what do? They're like, well, we got to see the games. How does it look? It's like, you cannot look at Missouri and tell me they should be in the top 25.
With Drew Pine.
Drew Pine. We're projecting. We're projecting here.
I don't think they were wrong. Alabama should have got in over Florida State at that time because I think Alabama was a better team than Florida State with Tate Rodemaker. Again, I think it'd be the same. Again, this is a pretty irrelevant part of this, but again, we are getting Greg McElroy. But to be fair, at least he's arguing about a top 12 team. But you're right. I think we're all
every SEC team matters, Dave.
I don't think Missouri's
MIZ. We got to give them some.
They won the head-to-head in double overtime. Get over it.
I would put South Carolina above Missouri.
So would I.
I would too, actually.
So would I. I would put them and Vanderbilt ahead of Mizzou. The way that they've looked so far this season. Tell me right now that you believe that there are 20 teams better than South Carolina. And they're going to prove it on Saturday when they play against Vanderbilt. You're going to see it clear as day. There are not 20 teams better than South Carolina. But you can't say that until you play the head-to-head, and the head-to-head right now leans in favor of Mizzou. And so if I'm going to argue head-to-head when it comes to Notre Dame over Texas A&M, Texas A&M over LSU, LSU over Ole Miss, it's like going back to my rankings. I respect head-to-heads. I do. So when you look at a team like Ole Miss that did lose to LSU, but LSU lost to Texas A&M, and they all have 2 losses, unfortunately, you're going to have to go that way. So Mizzou has 2 losses. They don't feel like the best 2-loss team in the country. They don't feel like they'd be like the worst 2-loss team.
Teams can change, Cole. That was a long time ago when they played that game. At least that's how I feel about that. Yeah, Ole Miss LSU played 2 weeks ago.
Look, guys, it's going to be solved if Drew Pine is playing quarterback at Farrell Field on Saturday. Everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be out.
That's the Joey Galloway take. Everything's going to solve itself out.
Everything's going to be fine.
We shouldn't argue this. All right, let's go through, because to Dave's point, we're sitting here arguing over 24. I'll go 19 through 13, and then we'll get the bracket pulled up. Kansas State, Pittsburgh, Iowa State, Ole Miss, LSU, A&M. Who's at 13? I can't
SMU.
see SMU, that's right. Sorry, I couldn't see 13 there. And then Boise State at 12. We'll get in the top 12 in a second. But any issues here? To your point, Cole, head-to-heads, LSU's ahead of Ole Miss. They won the head-to-head at Death Valley.
I don't know how you could argue. K-State really screwed themselves last week. You can say that at an out-of-conference SEC, not a non-SEC team losing to Houston. But other than that, I don't know how you would argue that. Yeah.
SMU at 13. Any issue here, SMU at 13?
Yeah, yes and no. Here's the issue.
No.
Until they prove it, because, yes, Pitt right now, they were undefeated going into that game. Maybe we'll be able to see them come back and get some life. I don't know. But what we are going to see is now what happens when you look at Pitt, at SMU. If somehow they do get the win over Miami and Miami is undefeated, well, it's a very clear indication that we need to see either a Notre Dame, a BYU, somebody else lose a game. So that way you get 2 ACC teams in. But currently the betting favorites are at Miami winning the conference, SMU coming in second place. That feels fair. And I respect the fact that they did do Texas A&M, LSU, and Ole Miss. Ole Miss, depending on what happens this weekend, that's going to be a really big deal. LSU, depending on what happens this weekend, that's going to be a really big deal. The question is, what do you do with Texas A&M? Because Texas A&M is on the bye. But Alabama, you would move them down clearly. Georgia, you would move down clearly. But would you move them down past Ole Miss? Because they would also be a 2-loss team. My main question is, what do you do with Texas A&M? Because if technically they still have a better record in conference play or the same record as LSU, but they have the head-to-head over LSU. So again, crazy crap is happening in the conference. I don't have a problem with it right now. They clearly had a good game plan going into where it's very hard to argue with the rankings. What you're arguing at this point is what happens when chaos occurs over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, you don't know how. I think the second projection to this next week when they bring this out are going to be key. Like, how do they view these teams sliding after losses? Yeah, because like we were talking about, at least one of the 3 of LSU, Alabama, and Ole Miss are going to be out. Like, how far does LSU move up after a win at home against Alabama? And like Cole said, A&M's off this week. So where do they kind of
But how far does Georgia move down if they lose? That's the other thing, because they're at 3 right now, and technically they're at 3 in the
I think too, and we'll get to the bracket in a second, but if Georgia were to lose, it's essentially then who's the committee projecting to win the conference. So I think depending, I guess it would be Texas.
Unless they would lose.
Yeah, I mean, which I don't think. I think we all don't think they'll lose a game until they get to college.
I don't think
the Kyle Field.
Yeah, but it does feel like with and you mentioned Cole head-to-heads, A&M beat LSU, LSU beat Ole Miss, so having those 3 in a row, that's going to work itself out of my mind, though. But I think
sorry, CP, I didn't mean to. I think Tennessee set up nice from an SEC standpoint.
Oh, Tennessee's in a great spot.
We're going to benefit.
Let's on that note pull up the bracket, because we're now at the point we're talking top 12 again. If Ole Miss can beat Georgia this weekend, they got a good shot to win out. They'll probably be in 74% chance with this on the telecast. LSU, Alabama, that's a playoff eliminator, we know. And A&M. Cole, I would say, agree or disagree, A&M wins out. If they beat Texas at Kyle Field, to me, they're in.
They're at least the 11 seed. Maybe they don't get host a playoff game.
Guys, here's a scenario. Here's a scenario we hadn't talked about. I mean, you could legitimately have 4 10-2 teams. Ole Miss beats Georgia this week. Georgia wins out. They're 10-2. Ole Miss wins out. They're 10-2. Alabama beats LSU this week. They're 10-2. They win out. A&M beats Texas. They win out. Texas loses that game. They're 10-2. There's just 5.
What about Tennessee?
And Tennessee loses to Georgia. They're sitting there.
And then all of a sudden I look smart because in the preseason I picked 7 10-2.
I mean, that's not. Let's be honest. That all won't happen, but that's not like wild scenario.
What if it did? But what if it did?
Who says it won't?
No. I'm not saying it won't. If I didn't think it wouldn't, I wouldn't have brought it up. I'm just saying odds are
it's not likely. It's not likely. That's like hitting the ultimate parlay. Anyways, guys, projected bracket. Here we go. Right here. Just feeding into the conversation. Second team out, A&M. First team out, SMU. Going through this top 12, Boise State, Bama, Notre Dame, BYU, Indiana, Tennessee, Penn State, Texas, Miami, Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon. Let's talk this top 12. Alabama in an 11. Anybody got any pushback on that? Again, like today's point, I saw it too. There was a lot of pushback on social media about Bama being in.
Which I don't get.
Yeah. I don't have a major problem with it.
They hadn't played a team with a losing record.
Yeah, bring that, Dave. Yeah, Cole. I don't think Cole obviously wasn't on. Bring that stat up about playing teams, winning records, because I think this shows resume matters. Strength of schedule matters.
This is in order of the playoff. This is how during lunch today I was going with this. So here's Cole. Here it is for you and the people listening. I went through the schedules that these teams. They're all in there. There's nobody I'm missing. About 15 teams that were true contenders in this 12-team playoff, and went through their schedule and who they had played so far. How many games have they played against teams with winning records? Now, again, some of these 500 teams are left out. I'm talking winning records. Oregon's played 4 so far. Georgia's played 3. Ohio State's played 6. Miami's played 4. Indiana's played 2. Texas has played 6. Tennessee's played 5. BYU's played 3. Notre Dame's played 4. Penn State's played 3. Penn State's played 3. Alabama's played 7. Texas A&M's played 5. SMU's played 5. LSU 4. Ole Miss 5.
I mean, I can answer this pretty quickly. LSU lost the head-to-head to Texas A&M, who lost the head-to-head to South Carolina, who lost the head-to-head to Ole Miss, who lost the head-to-head to LSU, and Alabama's only loss in the head-to-head was against Tennessee. They haven't played the other squads to where they can lose the head-to-head. Therefore, they're at number 11. That's just the case.
Yeah,
that was my argument for them in the top 10 is that they didn't play a head-to-head against any of these other teams, or if they did, they won it. So sorry, they're at 11, and it'll solve itself out because all you do.
If Bama wins and collects another win at Tiger Stadium and finishes 10-2, they're in.
Yeah, 100%.
But even if they collect the win this weekend, it justifies putting them at number 11 because if they would hold the head-to-head over a team like LSU, and again, they already have the head-to-head over South Carolina, who has the head-to-head over Texas A&M, who has the head-to-head over LSU, who has the head-to-head over Ole Miss, who has the head-to-head over South Carolina. So it goes back in a circle. The only one that doesn't is Alabama. So there we go. That was my argument.
The only team that has the head-to-head over Alabama is if they both finish 10-2 would be Tennessee.
Yeah, exactly. Because Georgia right now, the reason why they're at number 4, I mean at the 2 seed in the number 4 overall, 3 overall is because of they lost to Bama, but that was it.
Any issue with Notre Dame at 10, Cole? I know this is one you've been really passionate about. NIU, the loss to NIU in the top 12.
Lose a game and then you're out. I mean, like that's it. Like at this point, you're gonna be either in at number not a 10, 9, or 8.
And this is probably.
I agree with Cole. Notre Dame's pretty locked into the 8 to 10 spot. I agree with that. If they lose, they're out. If they win, they're in.
Is this a situation you think where if you're A&M, you are fingers crossed that Notre Dame loses another game, just to if you can win out? Like, could an SEC team potentially, could they be a bid stealer, be bumped out?
I don't know. Could you put A&M ahead of Notre Dame if they have the same record with 2 losses when they play?
With 2 losses, yes, but not
because of the NIU loss.
Well, I mean, they played head to head. I mean, I thought we were giving the head to head to because Notre Dame beat A&M. I know that was week 1. I know, but I'm saying if they both had 2 losses to finish the year, they did play, as we know.
Do I think that right now the committee would give the head-to-head over A&M as how their strength of schedule has looked and also how their resume looks? Yes, I do. But also, that might be a big deal breaker. Also, who are we saying right now that we're going to see A&M go not 9-3 instead they're going to go 10-2? How are we guaranteeing
all hypothetical?
Notre Dame?
Dude, I mean, you could say that. I mean, all this is hypothetical. I mean, how technically Georgia could lose 2 more games. They're not even in this.
They could lose next week and they're not in this, or they're at least in the number 11 team.
Don't miss and lose to Tennessee. It's 2 more games.
Yeah.
But I'm saying just next week you put them at the 11 spot, where you have to because of you're gonna have to.
And then where would you put Ole Miss then?
That's what I'm saying. It all becomes a problem at this point. Everything becomes a problem because A&M has the head-to-head over LSU.
I think if we got a bunch of 2-loss teams, I'm gonna be honest with you, I think Alabama's on the top dog out of that list because you go look at that resume, you'd be like, well, everyone else has got 2 losses at that point. Let's be honest. Unless you're just totally jaded with just a brand, not from a positive standpoint, and you just look at Vanderbilt, the name. I mean, this will be a whole team that you did go lose on the right. So that loss isn't as bad as you think. And Bama's wins at that point. We're not even trying. If they have to win out, obviously beat LSU. That's another road win.
But wouldn't Ole Miss be in that conversation because they would also have the win against Georgia?
Yeah, but Bama would have beat LSU, who Ole Miss lost to. Bama would have much better. Beat South Carolina, Ole Miss did too. Alabama would have better wins across the board.
No. I'm not saying that you don't put them in. What I'm saying is that if you have 2 10-2 10-2 rosters and both of them beat Georgia, both of them are in.
But now, they also have another common opponent in LSU, and Bama would beat LSU. Georgia would have Ole Miss lost to LSU.
No. Alabama 100% ahead of Ole Miss. I'm saying that Ole Miss at least has to be in that conversation because they would also have the matchup. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, you could have 6 teams that need to be in this conversation. I just think at that point, Bama would be kind of the team that kind of gets in out of those 2 10-2 spots because of their resume and their wins.
Because it's
I mean, you talk about it. Let's talk about this, guys. Tennessee, again, we're talking head-to-head, but let's just say Tennessee does go 10-2. They beat Mississippi State this week, lose to Georgia, and then they beat Vanderbilt and UTEP, I think. What's outside of Bama? What's their win? I'm just being objective.
No, I mean that's very fair. I was thinking about that before the season, even with them.
But then
Bama is their signature win. That is their signature win.
Yeah.
But then you can do the same thing about Miami. If Miami goes in and they lose to SMU and SMU gets the bye because if they won the ACC, what's their signature win? It's the same argument that we have with Clemson. It's the same argument that we have with Texas right now.
I would say Louisville would be
their. We're going to have this argument with Texas technically because of what is their signature win. Oklahoma,
Colorado State,
Colorado.
Hey, I mean, did you hear Joey Galloway, Cole? Just like he wanted to use the F word, the fraud word on Texas so bad. He literally said, "Who have they played? Who have they beaten?" He was, and I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, Listen, I think Texas is a very good football team.
If you want to be honest, like Colorado State's probably going to play Boise in the Mountain West championship game. That's probably their best win right now.
That or at Vandy.
Well, it's going to be A&M.
Yeah, at Vandy. I'll give you the nod there.
Or to your point, Cole, when it sorts itself, it's going to be, assuming they go into Kyle Field and be A&M, it's going to be A&M.
Let's be honest here. Here's a good question.
Cole seems convinced that's already going to happen.
Cole's passionate about this. Let's say this. I'm asking both of y'all this. Texas loses to A&M and finishes 10-2. Should they be in the playoffs?
It's all based off of the other teams in the SEC.
It is dependent on the – because at that point –
yeah, I think Texas is towards – if they all go – again, likely not. No, it's not likely. But if those 6 teams all went 10-2, Texas is in that 5th and 6th spot.
Odd man out. They would be odd man out.
But Dave, do me a favor. What happens, and I don't think it will, and I don't think any of us do, based off of our rankings, what if South Carolina loses to Vanderbilt and that win becomes even stronger? And Vanderbilt go down to the stretch and they finish 8-4. Just imagine that. So then that becomes a better win for Texas, even if not. And also, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Nobody is going to say the quiet part out loud, so I will. Voting and ratings matter. Ratings matter to this. That's why Notre Dame, despite being one of the biggest frauds when it comes to losing to an NIU squad, is in at number 10 and SMU is on the outside looking in. Like, that's what it comes down to. I don't think that Texas would belong at that point. They wouldn't.
I mean, I'll tell you this, who do they get over in the SEC if Vanderbilt's their best? I mean, you got to think Alabama, Ole Miss would have wins over Georgia, which they lost. A&M beat them head-to-head. They ain't getting in over there. Tennessee's got to win over Alabama, which is better than anything Texas would have.
You would have
again, I'm with you on the TV rating.
Who would you snub in favor of Texas? Is the question.
Yeah, without
Indiana at 10-2.
Obvious.
Indiana at 10-2, probably. That's what you would do. Or you would probably snub Notre Dame.
SEC teams in.
So I was gonna say on that note, guys, because again, I don't think there's much more to discuss at the top. Ohio State 2, Oregon 1, unless y'all have big objections. I don't think that's But
I mean, I guess the Ohio State Georgia breakdown. Sorry to interrupt you, Chris. Are you going with who has the better loss or who has the better win? I probably would have put Georgia second because I would want the better win. But I mean, you're splitting hairs.
I have one. BYU should be above Penn State and above Texas.
I'm cool with that.
I'm sorry, they should.
That's fair.
Should.
Yeah.
Name a signature win for Penn State at this point. You can name a signature loss. That's
USC in overtime. That's it.
But that's what I'm saying. You can name a signature loss. I can name 2 signature wins for BYU.
They're very
we talked about this, guys. I know we're an SEC show, but did anyone benefit from the college football playoff going to 12 teams more than James Franklin and Penn State?
The college football playoff was made for James Franklin and Penn State.
He became a playoff coach overnight.
It was made for him. It was made for Notre Dame. Congratulations, Marcus Freeman. Congratulations, James Franklin, on being good, not great coaches for finding your way to get in. And by the way, I'm not saying that either one of these 2 schools need to fire their coach and start fresh. You're not going to get much better than James Franklin. You're not going to get much better than Marcus Freeman. What I'm saying is stay in your lane and know what you are. You're 10-2 every single year. And if you're Notre Dame at this point, don't join the Big Ten. Join the ACC and own it at this point, because at least then you'll get in and get a first-round bye.
Y'all know who could come out of just the gates of hell out of nowhere and just rise and have a phenomenal seed in this? It's not even like really in this discussion right now. LSU.
LSU 100% can.
Yeah.
Tennessee can technically. I mean, they're in the conversation.
No, I mean, you're right. If Tennessee were to go to beat Georgia next week and finish 11-1, yeah, you're right, Cole. They're in the SEC championship game. They could be – if they go win the SEC, they'd be in one of those buys.
Imagine UT versus UT in the SEC championship game for bragging rights to actually call themselves UT. Like, I mean, come on. Like who personally, internally does not want that just a little bit? Gotti Orange versus Burt Orange fighting their way for the title of UT down in Atlanta.
So, guys, right now in the top 12, and I want to get in these individual matchups in a second, but let's let the imagination run wild here. We got Georgia, we got Texas, we got Tennessee, we got Alabama. I mean, how many do you think the SEC could get in when the dust settles? We're projecting way down the road. I mean, let's not say something absurd. I think Cole maybe texted this in our group chat that somebody said 8 on some show, which is just outrageous. But I mean, do we think 5? I mean, 5 could get in realistically. Could 6 get in? Is that possible? Would you cap it at 5?
Dave, I'll let you go.
Would you cap it at 4? Would you cap it at 4?
I'll let you go, Dave, because I have some points on this one.
No, I mean, if things got real wild, maybe 5, but I think it's pretty locked in. I'd be a little – I think a great over-under is right at 4.
Yeah.
I mean, I think 4 is pretty safe. It's pretty average. Again, 3, and the SEC would – somebody would have to get upset here. Now, I think maybe like a Texas loses in Arkansas, Ole Miss beating Georgia this week, something like that, when Ole Miss maybe trips up down the line. I don't know. Something would have to happen from that perspective, I think, to get 3. 5, I don't know. I see 4, 6.
I can see 6. Now, hold up. I can see 6.
I mean, it's shit, unless chaos breaks loose and Missouri wins out and they get in.
No, it doesn't even have to be Missouri. Think about this for a second.
I don't even think 10-2 Mizzou would get in. You think they'd get in?
Not over a 10-2.
Not if the SEC gets 6 teams in.
But think about this for a minute. What happens, and it's not going to happen, but just humor me. What happens if Miami somehow loses 2 games down the stretch, either to Georgia Tech?
We're going to play that card.
Yeah, but okay.
But what if Miami loses out, Cole? Like,
if Miami loses out, then SMU is the winner.
What if Oregon loses 3 games?
Okay, what if Penn State loses? What if Penn State loses 2 games? What if Indiana loses?
That's what I'm saying. We could go.
What if Michigan loses to? What if Indiana loses to Michigan and to Ohio State? And then you see all these 6-10, these 6-10 win teams.
Like, hear me out, guys.
It's possible.
Miami loses out. All this, I'm like, oh God.
Listen,
Cole said it's going to be like Omaha in baseball. Yeah. Half the field's going to be SEC.
I am basically Charlie Day trying to find out who Pepe Sylvia is, connecting the dots together and on no sleep. It's possible for Texas A&M, Tennessee, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, and even Ole Miss to get in the playoff. It's unlikely. It is unlikely.
That's what I'm saying. My pick was what it's likely to be, not pure hell category 5 hurricane.
Chris asked the question, what is the most that could get in? I think 6. I think they're going to put a cap at 5, personally. I think 5 would be the cap, depending on what happens in the Big Ten, Notre Dame, and the ACC title game. But still, I think that there is a possibility for them to get 5 in.
Hell would break loose in the college football world.
But also, Indiana's not losing.
Here's a question.
So it's not going to be that big of a deal.
I don't think this happens. And again, we're an SEC channel, but we're talking college football playoffs. So I want to because what if Indiana beat Ohio State? And Ohio State has 2 losses at that point.
They're still in, I think.
I think it kind of depends what else kind of happens across the board. What else about? I mean, again, I'm bringing up that I was giving you hell, Cole, for saying that. But again, it all depends. That's an interesting because their 2 losses would be to Oregon and then it'd be to Indiana.
Now, time out. If Penn State is 10-2 head to head, you would give the nod over Penn State. To Ohio State. So that's where I'm at. I don't think a 10-2 Ohio State team's going to be left out because if they own the head to head over Penn State.
No, I don't think they will either. I don't think they'll lose. Which y'all's thoughts on 11-1 Indiana if they lose by 2+ scores against Ohio State?
Depends on the rest of the conferences. That to me is it. Okay, Dave, counter argument. If they lose by a touchdown to Ohio State, right?
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, the committee made it. They made it very. What was it? Kevin Warren that was talking on the broadcast.
Reward manual.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he made it very clear. I mean, because they asked the question, why do you have Indiana ahead of BYU? And they said, well, we watch the games. Like, we feel like what Indiana's done, the way they've won. He's like, they've won more games by double digits. Their average margin of victory. So, like, as much as head-to-head matters, it does. I mean, I think he made it very clear that they watch the games and the way that it looks, at style points. I mean, heck, they kind of made the point style points matter. I think
Indiana has trailed 1 time this entire year, 10-0, and they didn't allow the opponent to score again. They have won every single game by double digits. So to me, if you're 11-1 and you lose by a touchdown to Ohio State, who I still believe has a very good shot of winning it all at the end of the day, whether them or Oregon or Georgia, they all still can. I believe they're in. They have to be. Now, you don't have to get
who are you taking, a 10-2 Ole Miss with a win over Georgia or 11-1 Indiana with a touchdown?
Wait, hold up. Time out. You're saying with a win over Georgia?
That's the only way we're talking. That's the only way we're talking Ole Miss, right? I don't think anybody's talking 9-3.
Yeah, they got to win that game.
Now, time out. Unfortunately, we have to have this conversation. What do we do with Tennessee if they lose to Georgia, but Texas loses to Georgia and they're 11-1. Alabama wins, they're 10-2, and they have the head-to-head over Georgia. We had to have that conversation because if Ole Miss has the win over Georgia and they're 10-2, are we going to leave Indiana out if they lose by 3 points or a touchdown to Ohio State? Probably not at 11-1. But then we have to have the conversation about Tennessee. And I know that it's very hard, but then we have to have the conversation about Alabama. How does that loss look for a team against Vanderbilt? Because if Vanderbilt loses and they go 6-6 at the end of the year, that would be the weakest loss, and you would still have the head-to-head against Tennessee at 10-2. So there's a bunch of other scenarios.
That's where I'm a little different. I'm not just like the paper resume. You got to go eye test a little bit too. You can't just go hardcore paper. I like to be in the middle with your resume. You got to have a resume, but I think you got to pass the eye test too. And I had that in my notes. I was going to ask y'all more eye test?
I'm both.
Your resume.
Because perfect example.
The cop-out answer, Cole. I'm more. I'd probably say I'm more eye test.
But
you had to pick one.
It'd be eye test because here's the thing: you're not putting in an
because you're not what your record says you are all the time. You're not always what your record says you are.
But also keep in mind, you also have to look at Florida State last year. Nobody believed that they were a top 4 seed. Nobody did.
Not in that moment.
No. But as soon as they lost Jordan Travis, season was done.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's just the name of the game. You may have been 13-0, but you didn't have the personnel. And you can't justify putting Texas in as a Big 12 champion, but leaving the SEC champion out when they lost to Texas by 10 points, and you had to go down to the wire with Louisville, who already had 3 losses. Like, that's what it comes down to at this point. That's where my brain is. So it's like, the eye test matters. The resume also does, because Florida State had the resume, but when it came down to the final wire, it mattered about the eye test. And so
I think if you're a 1-game separator, in my opinion, if you're within 1 game, I think that's where the eye test can oversee the resume if they're in different.
I mean, that's why, honestly, Dave, I can hear you out in the argument about Alabama not being in the top 12 right now, because eye test for Bama, I don't know, man. Listen, they've got their opportunity this weekend. It'll just.
Bama LSU's a mute point. We're about to find out.
Right, that'll tell all. What about Georgia at 9-3? Would they get him?
No, probably not. Not this year, I think.
I mean, unless again, there's pure chaos.
It had to be pure chaos. I had somebody bring that up today, and I figured I'd ask you guys.
Well,
Georgia make it.
Think about this. And again, all these scenarios, but what if Notre Dame loses somehow to Florida State and that's their loss? They're 10-2.
Best chance of losing is what? Probably Army.
Or even USC, depending on what happens to Miami.
I think they match up pretty well there, but yeah.
But what if they lose to Florida State, and that's Florida State's second win? Are we really going to put Notre Dame in because of the ratings at that point?
No, they lose.
If Notre Dame loses another game, they're out.
They're out.
Because, yes, probably, and I would say almost 100%. But what I'm also going to say is that ratings do play a factor to a certain amount, but you're not putting them in when they lose to an already lost and out of the running for even a bowl game Florida State squad and an NIU squad. You're not putting them in at that point. It's a done deal. So, yeah, that was the argument. You'd probably put a 9-3 Georgia team in over them. But Georgia, if they lose to Tennessee and Ole Miss, you can't leave them out. You just can't if they're both 10-2.
Yeah, I think to your point, Cole, about the ratings too, and they mentioned this on the telecast, the second best teams in the ACC, the Big 12, maybe you could argue the Big 10, but certainly the Big 12 and the ACC, the second best teams should be really concerned about these 2 lost SEC teams.
Guys, just a friendly reminder.
It was a good weekend for the SEC last week.
The group of 5, number 2 is Army. They are at number 25. The number 2 for the ACC is SMU. They're on the outside looking in at number 13.
Yeah.
When you also put in the number 2 for the Big 12, it's Iowa State, who also still has to play Kansas State.
Winner that's going to Arlington.
Right. And also Colorado on the outside, also who needs them to lose for chaos to happen.
Yeah.
They're at 20. So it's yes, it's
Here's
very
an interesting question for y'all. Let's just say hypothetically Iowa State goes to the Big 12 and knocks off an undefeated BYU.
I think you put BYU in because the way you talked about this offseason. Here's the thing. How can you justify leaving BYU out? Because remember this, and this is my only argument. BYU would have 2 ranked wins against an SMU squad that's probably going to Charlotte in their first year, and against also a Kansas State squad that lost to Iowa State. And then you're going to tell me that at the start of the year when we had this conversation, oh, by the way, if you go to Arlington, a game that you weren't promised, and you have 2 ranked wins, you're still going to be left out of the playoffs.
This is similar to TCU in 22.
It's 100% similar to TCU in 22. It's 100%. Because if you weren't promised that game, ever. And yet now we're going to say because if you didn't win the conference title, you're not good enough to be in the playoff, even though you were good enough for most of the year before that? I don't agree with it.
It kind of reminds you, not personnel-wise, but it's that team, you look at their schedule, they got at Utah, Kansas, at Arizona State, and Houston left. You're like, they'll probably drop one. And so you're going to be looking there at Thanksgiving, being like, nope, they're 11-0, rolling in, playing Houston. They're probably going to be undefeated. It's like you just keep looking up each week. You're like, BYU's just that team that just finds the ways to win this year. And then it wouldn't shock if they lost in Arlington.
Well, think about Indiana real fast. Indiana feels a lot like Washington last year, where they had a game where maybe they played a little bit down at the competition and it felt a little bit too close for comfort, and that might end up being Ohio State. It might end up being Michigan. But if they do their job and they win, can you justifiably leave them out? Because of You're not going to lead them out of the Big Ten championship, and that automatically guarantees their spot.
Are y'all good with Indiana being out if they lose by 3 scores?
To Ohio State?
Well, I think Cole, to his point, too, like the whole ratings thing.
It
Yeah,
matters.
you could see that a 2-loss SEC team versus a 1-loss Indiana that lost in that fashion.
Sure.
Yeah.
Here's the deal.
You're going to find out real quick if you're Indiana.
Here's the deal. What if Penn State somehow drops another game, I don't know, to Maryland or Purdue?
At Minnesota. Yeah.
Then they are the one that are out, and then you put Indiana in. Like, that can happen, I think, still. But that's the only way. If you have an 11-1 Ohio State team, an 11-1 Ohio State team, an 11-1 Penn State team, an 11-1 Indiana squad, and Indiana, the differential is the score in that game by 3 touchdowns, you're not leaving Penn State out.
Over Penn State, yeah.
No, but if you're losing by 3 scores, you're not leaving Penn State out because of what the ratings would do. You're not. It's never going to be possible.
I don't think anybody's arguing that, though. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think anybody's not saying the ratings thing. We say that every year. How there are people arguing that's why Alabama got in last year.
Guys, let me ask you, what do you think is the number one matchup based off of the screen right now that you would be most intrigued to watch?
Wanted to get there next.
I'm taking the over, Indiana, Tennessee. I heard it. Galloway.
Dave said he ain't watched the game all year, man. Come on.
To me, it's got to be Alabama and Texas.
Yeah, it's got to be Texas, Bama. The rematch of that game from last year in Austin, Jalen Milroe wants this one. He wants his redemption from last year. He's from the state of Texas. Oh, yeah. It's easily Texas Bama, Cole.
If I can argue, and it is easily Texas Bama, it is, but still, if I can argue, Indiana Tennessee would be fun. Because imagine seeing that offense the way it is look so far in Bloomington this year against that defense by Tim Banks. And what if, just humor me, a school like a G5 program such as Appalachian State or Old Dominion or Coastal Carolina is looking to hire somebody from the playoff that's a coordinator. And they could take the job because they're not a head coach. So they could easily do 2 jobs at once, build their recruiting basis, build their landscape, and find players that currently are looking at potentially entering the portal at the end of the year to build their landscape. Like Tim Banks would be a perfect example of this, and so would Mike Shanahan. Like imagine if Cole Stoll decides to fire Tim Beck, the other Tim Beck, not the one that currently is the offense coordinator at Vanderbilt, but they fire him and they hire Tim Banks. And they say, you know what? This is a really good move. And you start to figure out, well, there are players that currently are at Tennessee that aren't going to play, but he's building a pipeline, and you have a good expectation if you're Cole Stoll to figure out what you have. Or Mike Shanahan, if you were to get the job at, say, East Carolina. Like, I'm just saying, that could be
someone clip this and send it to Tim Banks' agent. We're getting this guy a head coaching job.
Listen, you and I got an argument earlier about
this segment alone.
Dude, a beautiful Jersey game. I'll give it this. Notre Dame.
It is a beautiful Jersey game.
Notre Dame, listen, y'all tell me if I'm crazy. Notre Dame, Penn State to me screams snow game. Screams.
Oh, it's 100%
snow game. It's got
I feel like we'd be getting ripped off.
Feel of all time. That one's got to be in the snow, man.
Y'all know I heard somebody say today, technically, I don't know why that anybody would do this, but they're saying technically the home team has the say if they want to go to a neutral site in case it's too cold or snowy at their game.
No shot.
Okay.
Yeah,
that is not a real thing.
I will say this
what
is
a tone that would set.
This is a really interesting one to me. It's not going to happen. It would be foolish to happen. But if you ever want an excuse to fire Ryan Day, let Ashton Jeanty run for 400 yards against your defense. That would be a game.
Right, dude. They'd be a little pissed off, I think, if they lost this game one.
A little pissed off?
This would maybe be one of those.
He might be gone.
Yeah.
He would be in the playoff and fire.
In the shoe, Ashton Jeanty has his
career game right after being in it, right after probably losing out to Cam Ward or Travis Hunter for the Heisman Trophy, playing pissed off. You wouldn't tell me that he would have the moment.
All right, yeah, here's a question for you. Who do y'all have playing in the national championship game if it looked like this right now?
I think it lines up really well for Georgia. I'd probably go Georgia, Oregon at this point.
Texas, Oregon.
Okay.
Texas,
do you think Texas would get the revenge in the semis?
I think they would get the revenge in the semis.
Okay. That's fair. I mean, but it definitely feels like, at this point in the year, chalk does win out a lot. It does feel like we'd be on a crash course for Georgia, Texas.
Can we just
Ohio
say
State? We'd be right back to that 4.
I'd go Oregon, Texas. I would agree with him. If you made me bet money right now, the way what we know to right now, November 5th on election night at 8:42 p.m. Eastern, yeah, I would probably go.
Wait, what election? I thought that we already got it done with this.
This is the poll that matters.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
I agree with Cole. I would go Oregon. I'd go Oregon, Texas if you made me bet money right now.
Would any of you go potentially Ohio State, Texas, and both getting the rematch win?
I thought about Ohio State, Oregon, but I think as they're playing right now, I'd have to lean Oregon a little bit. I don't
think, guys, if Georgia and Texas played again, I don't think I could. I'd have to.
But
see
it would be at a neutral site location. You would have.
Being in Austin sure didn't matter.
You would have would you not have a healthy Quinn Ewers or a healthy Arch Manning?
I don't know.
He would have 2 games to decide if who he was going to be. I'm just saying. That's the beauty of when you play.
Cole's saying he doesn't get touched for 4 more weeks. Like doesn't his jersey? They only have to clean his jersey.
Listen,
the easiest job.
What was the reason that I picked LSU over Texas A&M? Garrett Nussmeier's jersey was so clean you could eat a 5-course dinner off of it and nobody would complain. The same thing. What if it happens? What if it happens?
Hey, Cole, Smart better be getting that offensive line better this bye week.
I think he did, personally. I think he did.
But he's got his ear on the ground.
I think he did. I mean, listen, Nico Iamaleava's got to get his offensive line playing well if they want to beat Oregon. I feel more confident saying that Indiana would put up a better fight than Tennessee right now against Oregon.
If Nico could get rolling, man, that Tennessee-Oregon game could be just electric.
It would be the greatest game of the
if Nico can get it rolling.
Be real.
Guys, they'll never do this because of money. But imagine if every game was like home field advantage like the NFL until the national championship game.
Oh, do me another favor. Please. And this is just me being selfish. Please, can we move Notre Dame to number 11 and Alabama to number 10 just so I can get Catholics versus convicts in the likes of the quarterfinals? I'm begging you. I'm begging you for that at this point.
Here's a good question. What team are you most confident that is in the current field in the 12 spots that'll be there at the end, and what team are you most confident will be out at the end?
I'll let you go first, Chris.
Most confident that'll be in the national title.
No. Will be in the 12.
Oh, that'll be in this 12 team. The team I'm most confident that will be in this 12 team. I'd go Tennessee. I think because their path. I think their path, what they've got left. Even if they lose to Georgia, like they've got what, Vandy and who's the other team they got?
Vandy, UTEP, and
Mississippi State, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I feel really good. A 10-2 Tennessee, I feel confident they're in. Least confident
that'll be there the first week of December.
Least confident, I'd probably go either Indiana or Notre Dame.
I say there's 3 answers for it.
Indiana or Notre Dame.
Okay, I'm going to lead the first 4 because I think that they're all going to get in some capacity because I just don't see Miami dropping a game. I think the most confident I'm in it right now, surprisingly, and it freaking makes me disgusting to say this. It really hurts my heart. Notre Dame. Because you're not leaving them out if they're 11-1. And I don't think they're losing to Virginia. I don't think they're going to lose to Army. I don't think they're going to lose to Florida State, and they're not going to lose to USC. So it's disgusting, but yeah, I'll put them in. And I'm going to be completely real. I think Tennessee, potentially. I think Tennessee or Alabama. Because here's going to be what really matters at the end of the day. If Alabama starts playing its best version of football down the stretch, then immediately the head-to-head, does that matter anymore? If Ole Miss somehow beats Georgia, Georgia's 10-2, but they have a win over Tennessee. But also, if Alabama loses this weekend, they're out. So it's like, those to me feel like the 2 easiest ones because of, even if the head-to-head matters, a 7-point loss on the road in Neyland, yet you still have the head-to-head win over Georgia, and you would have a win over LSU, and you would have a win, LSU, over Arkansas, who lost to Tennessee, who beat Tennessee. You could make that argument. So I feel like that those are the 2 that I can bet depending on how everything pans out. But it's Alabama or Tennessee are the 2 I feel the least confident in.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Cole. Alabama feels like the team least confident. Like you said, it comes down to this weekend to me. And again, I'm going to pick Alabama, but I mean, it's kind of a coin flip to me. It's going to be a torrential downpour, too, as well, boys.
What about the most confident?
Most confident?
Dave, didn't you mention to me you were
outside of the top 4? I know it's my own question, but none of y'all picked a top 4 team out of that. So outside of the top 4, who am I most confident? Probably Ohio State.
I say
I think Cole's on to something too with Notre Dame because of schedule. I think that's fair.
Don't have to play a conference again. Dave, didn't you mention to me you were confident Tennessee was going to be there?
I think you make a good point too. I think Tennessee.
It's just like what they have left. I mean,
yeah. I mean, like you said, it's all. I mean, if you all respect to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I mean, they could get upset in Nashville, but like, is it likely?
Talk about them being on Heupel's ass. If they go to Nashville with a playoff opportunity on the line and you lose to Vandy,
Diego Pavia saves his best trick yet.
Oh man,
Diego Pavia, we will never.
Can I maybe change mine real fast to Boise State getting it as the Group of 5 school? Because think about this for a minute. I know it's a cop out, but think about this for a minute. 3-7 Nevada, 2-7 Wyoming squad, 4-4 Oregon State, 5-3 San Jose State. And they just found a way to put a beat down on San Diego State by 30 points. And their toughest game was against Washington State that they would hold the head-to-head against. I mean, you have Genty. And by the way, I'm going to make this abundantly clear. If you break a record, you win the Heisman. If you break the record, you get the award. I don't care about the level of competition you went up against. You broke the record. You did something no one else did. What does that represent? The most outstanding individual player in college football, because you didn't see anybody else break a record. Sorry, that's the Heisman Trophy winner.
There you go. Hey, GT Party. That's 2 campaign endorsements from our guy Cole Thompson tonight. He already endorsed Tim Banks is the next head coach at Coastal Carolina. His agent needs to get that out one. And whoever is representing Ashton Genty to go to New York and win the Heisman, get this clip out here, baby.
Roll it.
That's
going to be on the
football.
Dave, that's going to be on the Genty Boise State football highlight tape.
Time out. Boise State graphics department. Here you go. Ashton Genty made a record. Who else made a record this year? Not a damn person. Congratulations on making it.
Cole, what about our guy Monty here? He's saying Dylan Sampson broke the TD record. Who's winning it?
Did he break the Tennessee TD record, or did he break the FBS record for the most rushing yards?
Yeah, when you're getting compared to Barry Sanders, I mean, that's just
when you're on the trajectory to be the all-time single season
Monty,
leader.
I tried to help you.
Touchdowns, yards per contact.
I mean, listen, Dylan Sampson is the sleeper from the SEC for the Heisman, but I mean, come on.
Excuse you. He is no longer the sleeper.
Well, okay, well. He's the best. I should have said he's the best odds from the SEC actually to win it. Maybe sleeper was the wrong word. Yeah, best odds from the SEC.
Because there's a Category 5 storm headed to Oxford this week.
Dartnado
is about ready to destroy Georgia. And we're
that ticket is heated up in Cole's hand.
Cole's right. The clouds started coming down in Fayetteville. It's heading down to Memphis. It's crossing the border into Mississippi.
We saw a nice cool breeze come through, and we felt the weather change out in Razorback Stadium.
There's a cold front coming in with some warm temps.
Hey, it's brewing.
Imagine that if he goes out there and, I don't know, throws for a couple bills, but imagine that Jackson Dart hype tape at the end when he's sitting there with his head down after LSU and just saying, we got to win out, and that Anakin Skywalker look like. He'll have the hardest Heisman tape of all time.
Dartnado is the voiceover.
I swear to God, I better be. Listen, I'm going to be completely real. I don't care about being in highlight clips. It's really awesome if somehow we get represented. And by the way, if anybody wants to go ahead and put us in a highlight tape,
shout out Mississippi State, who already did that. How about that?
But now Ole Miss, you got to realize that Mississippi State is a little bit higher ranked in our eyes because they put us in a highlight tape. And I've been saying Category 5 Dartnado since the start of the year. So maybe it's time that we give us a little.
Cole's had that ticket in his pocket. Guys, before we get out of here, you mentioned your most confident, least confident that are currently in the top 12 to make it. Most confident of the teams outside the top 12, is there one you look at that you feel confident they're going to be there?
Dave, I'll let you go first.
SEC or not SEC, but I mean, I'd imagine it's probably going to be SEC. But team outside the top 12, you'd put them in right now.
50% here, and I feel like this is pretty high, but it's just about as 50% as I feel about the team I said I feel the least confident in staying in the field right now. I think it's Alabama's the least, and I would say probably most because I think it's a coin flip this weekend. I think it's LSU because if LSU beats Alabama, they have Florida, Oklahoma, and Vandy left, 2 of them being at home. I feel pretty good they win those games, especially with a playoff berth on the line. So I'm going to go LSU.
Let's just go ahead and mix things up because I don't want to say the exact same thing. LSU is the right answer, but still, your only loss would come to a Big 12 champion and you would get the upset win in Charlotte against Miami. SMU would be the right call because SMU is currently at number 13. They feel like the first team that's going to be in because they are the first team out. On top of that, if they get the win over Miami in Charlotte, they automatically would get the bye. Here's their schedule down the stretch. They get Boston College in 2 weeks. They get Virginia and they get Cal. And by the way, 2 of those games are out at University Park. So for me, it feels like that is a very clean, safe bet, the way they played on Saturday against Pitt and the way the ACC kind of feels a little bit more closed and condensed after what happened with Clemson.
I would also go LSU, Dave, to your point. It is the easy answer, Cole, but like you said, it's the right answer, I think. And it's so, especially as someone that's picked LSU in that football game. Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be LSU. I mean, granted, it's funny. I had over the summer, I had Florida beating them in an upset, but I didn't have their third-string quarterback more than likely starting or playing in that game. And, I mean, down the rest of the stretch, as good as Diego Pavi has been and, Oklahoma's Oklahoma, those games at home, I feel pretty confident LSU could finish the job. In that scenario, though, guys, LSU only having 1 conference loss, SEC championship. Could that muddy the waters? Could that muddy the waters a little bit if they were to lose?
But they would be 10. They would be 10-3 and in the conference championship.
Right. I don't think it should either. But they just, from what they said, the committee tonight, the way it looks, I don't know. Some chaos would have to happen. Either way, it's going to be chaos. It's going to be crazy. This is the first of, I believe, guys, 6 of these shows. These ranking shows are going to be
5 or 6. 5 or 6.
Yeah.
No. 5, and then the 6 is the actual ranking.
Yeah. So we're going to be doing this a lot, guys, every single Tuesday night or whenever the shows are, reacting, breaking it all down, giving our thoughts, and just 3 dudes just going back and forth at each other, trying to figure this thing out that is the college football season in 2024. So, boys, it was a lot of fun. Appreciate you all taking the time. Dave Shumate, Cole Thompson. Y'all are the best, man. Really good stuff. Again, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast where you get those. And all across social media, our website, secunfiltered.com. And again, stay tuned to all of our content bleeding out the eyeballs, as I like to say. So again, for Dave Shumate and Cole Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you on the other side.